Next to our furry and feathery friends, activists are my favorite people. Okay, right close. Okay, so why bear witness? Well, Leo Tolstoy is one of the inspirations behind our group and movement, and he said, "Do not believe in words, yours or others, believe in deeds." That's sort of the theme of my talk today. It's about the duty to bear witness. How many people have bore witness to animals in transport trucks or attended vigils in slaughterhouses? So I'd say, I don't know, 20%, which is great, thank you. Who is planning to go to a vigil someday in their lifetime? So, hoping that everyone says yes. There is a vigil Sunday morning, which Darren will mention, and there's also one Tuesday morning a few blocks away from here at Hallmark Chicken Slaughterhouse on the corner of Commercial Drive and Hastings. And Carolyn Wong, who's at the table, and I went there last night and spoke to a worker for about 5 minutes. So the main strategies of our group, Toronto Pig Safe, are first and foremost to bear witness. So let me just get this. And our group started a little over 5 years ago in the fall of 2011 when I adopted Mr. Bean, a beagle and whippet mix, for my mother. And I lived near the slaughterhouse since 2006. It was about a kilometer away. I knew about it, and I said, somebody should do something about it. But only when I adopted Mr. Bean, I walked along Lakeshore every day, and I saw the transport trucks, and we saw the pigs with their pleading faces looking out, and we saw that every morning, sometimes 8 or 9 trucks on our morning walk. And so the group formed. And first half year, we just did some art shows, and we gathered footage, and we had organizing meetings. And then half a year later, we committed to 3 vigils a week, every week. And we've done that for 5 years as of July. So that would be almost like, I don't know, 700-800 vigils. And I've been doing 3 a week, except recently, about a month ago, I've only been doing 2 a week. And I've been feeling for the first time a bit of burnout, so I'm doing some self-care, and thank you to David for highlighting the issues of burnout. The main strategy is that. Then we use a love-based community organizing approach inspired by Tolstoy, Gandhi, Cesar Chavez, Lois Gibbs, and countless of other people, famous and not famous, who have inspired us with a model. The other half of what we do is social media. So we're on the ground 3 times a week, not just behind a computer, we're on the ground, but the other half is the computer, is social media that has helped get the word out around the world about what we do through viral videos and photos that show the individuality of every single animal. And the other thing we do is, right now, we're really focused on starting new safe groups, and I'll talk a bit about that. We're having some major breakthroughs in the United Kingdom, for example. 4 groups formed this year, and they're already doing all-day vigils and first vigils. Anyways, it's very inspiring. The 5th thing I'll talk about is, some of you may have seen me on TV for being a famous criminal. I've been charged with criminal mischief for, giving water to thirsty pigs. I'm not the only one who did it, they just went after me, which is fun. And so I want to talk about the golden rule and how this is an opportunity to build bridges, because people are very sympathetic, meat eaters, non-meat eaters, to this case. And it's a way to get those images out that we see, the ones that cause us to get, experience trauma. But we're getting those images out on mainstream TV, which is great. Okay, so the duty to bear witness. Again, Tolstoy is someone who's inspired us. And the duty to bear witness arises first from the definition of love. Do you love animals? Well, what does it mean to love someone? To love someone, it means, if they're suffering, you are there, and you spend it. Tolstoy defined love as not merely a word, but an activity directed to the welfare of others. To love someone, you not only give to another your time and strength, but wear out your body for the loved object and give your life to it. So you give your life to, the person you love, that being animals. Secondly, the duty to bear witness arises from the imperative of not turning away, but trying to help when you see a suffering creature. How many people have heard someone, or maybe you yourself, have said, "Oh, that's too awful, I don't want to see." So we're trying to flip that around and say, I love you, I love animals, I want to see. I want to be there. I want all of you to say that. So Tolstoy again defined bearing witness as when the suffering of another creature causes you to feel pain, do not submit to the initial desire to flee from the suffering, but on the contrary, come closer, as close as you can, to him or her who suffers and try to help him or her. And that's from this book, A Calendar of Wisdom, which is sitting at our table there. Thirdly, there's a positive requirement, not only to not look the other way when you happen to see a slaughterhouse, but there's a positive requirement to seek out sites of great injustice. So you actually have to go find them and go there and face it. And so Tolstoy's best friend and confidant, Vladimir Cherkov, wrote a book, One Life. It's really profound, and I have some business cards there. You could send us a note if you want a copy of this book, One Life. I have it it was translated by a Russian friend of mine, and it's really amazing, including what he says about bearing witness, about facing it. So he says, to get a true notion of this matter, one first of all has to face it. And the best way to literally face it is by visiting a slaughterhouse or a kitchen yard and firsthand witnessing the killing of pigs, cows, and chickens for our table. I have no doubt that the great majority of people who would do it several times with diligence very soon would recognize the unlawfulness of what is happening before our eyes. So don't just do it once, do it many times. And the world will change. And we're open to meat eaters, veg people, and closet vegans. Like, we want everybody to come out and bear witness, and we all have a duty. So we hold, as I said, 3 vigils a week, and we also hold monthly all-day vigils. And this is really cool. This one's coming June 14th, and the maker of Earthlings, Sean Munson, is coming for the day. Bite-Sized Vegan, and Wayne of DXE. So anyways, we're really thrilled. And we're trying to do what the United Farm Workers did. They would, when they organized the union and community organizing group in California, is they worked with celebrities. We're a grassroots group, but at the same time we have top-down elements like celebrity to get the word out. And so that's what we're trying to do. I want to show you some pictures. That this pig, I just like his eyes look like planet Earth to me. And every pig is an individual, and they're so beautiful. All animals are so precious and beautiful. And so we bear witness in a partial way. We're not saving them. If you were in the truck, you saw people on a traffic island saying, "Oh, we love you, we're sorry. Here's a little water. Oh, bye, sorry," and then you go off to slaughter. It's partial. That's what makes it so painful. It's not what the animals deserve or need. So eventually it will be fully bearing witness. In China, they stop trucks and rescue all the animals, all the dogs. That's fully bearing witness. We've occasionally fully bore witness. We've rescued 2 lambs from Newmarket meat packers. Recently, a mother goat named Lily. That was not, we paid, in that case we never paid before, and we tried to go back and get our money back for vegan gifts, but it hasn't worked out yet, but we're still working on that because we're trying our best to make this, not support the system. There was a chicken that we rescued from Maple Leaf Poultry at our all-day vigil. The chicken was whisked off the kill floor by the production manager, and I gave the plant manager a hug, and her name is Mercy, and she's at Cedar Row now. So literally handful of cases in 5 years of organizing where we fully bore witness. What makes it so difficult to bear witness, as I said, is the animals are pleading for their lives when you're there at the slaughterhouse, and then they enter even more horrific inferno beyond our imagination. Leo Tolstoy said, he bore witness on slaughterhouses, and he said, I thought it was going to be worse than my imagination. I was wrong. So why do we bear witness every week? Like sometimes the slaughterhouse workers say, "Why are you here every week? You already took pictures." It's because every animal matters. Every pig. And I'll just show you a short video. So in this case, there's some women that were here for their first vigil. And we're on a traffic island in Burlington because the slaughterhouse in Toronto went bankrupt 2 years ago. So now we go to Burlington every week at Fearman's Pork Incorporated, and we are on the traffic island again, and we bear witness, sometimes just for moments. We also bear witness for many reasons. We're there for the animals, but we also politicize the trucks. I remember in the 90s, I was a vegetarian, and I never even noticed the trucks on the highway. But now I always notice the trucks. So we do weekly vigils on traffic islands, we have signs, and just by being there, the public, the thousands of people that see us at a 2-hour vigil, begin to see the trucks and the slaughterhouse. Some of them don't even know they're driving past the slaughterhouse. So we've politicized the sites and the trucks. And I wanted to quote Romain Rolland, who was a French writer and a Nobel laureate and a vegetarian, and he set up a global vegetarian society in the 20s and an anti-fascist society in the 20s. Very progressive man, and he wrote biographies on people who he thought were models, so people like Gandhi, Tolstoy, Ramakrishna, Vivekananda. And he said in his wonderful book called The People's Theater, but in art, let me just catch up. Anyways, I'll read from it. But in art, it is not necessary to combat evil with evil, but with light. The evil that is seen face to face, the evil that is conscious of being seen, is more than half conquered. And I wanted to say, the other thing we do is we do chalk art. So for example, it says, don't let your sense of injustice end where your selfishness begins. And then the little picture photo there shows 10 feet torn out. So when we do chicken vigils and we see the empty trucks, we often see feet that are torn out. Sometimes they get stuck in between the crates, and when they're yanked out, their feet get torn off. We do what we do so we can bear witness together and build community. So here you see people of all ages, all classes, all colors, coming together in a community organizing approach and bearing witness together. We leaflet, talk to the drivers. In the summer, we give the pigs water and fruit. And we talk to the slaughterhouse workers. As I said, we have a love-based approach. I mean, all of us must have, backgrounds, whether, farming or whatever. My mother said she remembers her father killing a sow when she was in the former Yugoslavia, and she would never forgot the screams. It didn't make her go vegetarian, but later in life she became vegetarian and vegan. So I'm sure all of us have stories, whether it's our own personal stories or in our families. And so we use a love-based approach, non-judgmental. We talk to the workers. Workers are often victims too, in a really real sense. Not always, there's accountability and we're all accountable. But we're working with In Defense of Animals, a big US group, who just started this very exciting project called Slaughterhouse Worker Helpline, and they're in Illinois. So I contacted them and said, hey, can we do this in Toronto? Because we do vigils every week. And Anna Pippis, who's at the Animal Justice table, she's not there right now. Okay, oh, there she is, she's at the back. So she's doing a lot of the groundwork for helping us set up a helpline in Toronto. And so we're hoping that other saves do this, work with the workers, and help them get out of a violent industry that they don't even want to be in, and also help them in any really genuine ways. Okay, so, with slaughterhouses, there are many points of access. So, are most of you from British Columbia? So, if you Google slaughterhouses in British Columbia, this comes up. CBC lists all the slaughterhouses with points. So I wanted to highlight a few things. First, I'll give a quote from Coetzee. How many people have heard of Coetzee, in his book, Elizabeth Costello? With Julie O'Neill, I interviewed him. He's very reclusive. He wouldn't even do media interviews, but he agreed to read an excerpt from Elizabeth Costello for us. So I will share that for you. And we had some audio effects to make it more dramatic here. So.
It seems a pleasant enough town, yet I'm sure they're here. They must be. They simply do not advertise themselves. We are surrounded by an enterprise of degradation, cruelty, and killing which rivals anything that the Third Reich was capable of. Ours is an enterprise without end. Ours is an enterprise without end. Rabbits, rats, poultry, livestock, ceaselessly into the world, killing them. I saw no horrors, I saw no factory farms, I saw no drug testing laboratories, I saw no abattoirs. They are all around us as I speak.
Okay, that's actually true. These places are all around us. In our case, it's like a few blocks away, there's a chicken slaughterhouse. So what does that mean for you and for me? Well, it means that, like I said, we have a duty to bear witness and to organize. And so if you just Google slaughterhouses in British Columbia and you want to start a save group, please message us and talk to us. And for example, in BC, there are chicken slaughterhouses in Vancouver, like United Poultry on 534 East Cordova, Hallmark on Commercial Drive, a cow slaughterhouse northwest of Vancouver in Terrace. There are many cow and chicken slaughterhouses on Vancouver Island. We need a save group, or several save groups on Vancouver Island, including a cow slaughterhouse in Victoria. And on the mainland in Surrey, there's a cow and chicken slaughterhouse. Thank you to Jody, who's sitting second row, started Surrey Chicken Save, so thank you for that. And other organizers here. Abbotsford has a chicken slaughterhouse, Chilliwack has a cow slaughterhouse, which I think, was that the one that Mercy for Animals highlighted? I'm not sure. Yeah, okay, so yeah, wouldn't it be good to do regular vigils at these places? Okay, the history of bearing witness, I'll say a few words because I'm not sure what the time is, but Darren, how are we for time?
We're 20 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so just a quick history. This has been happening throughout history where people have, given water to animals about to be slaughtered. In the 1880s, Louisa May Alcott, the author of Little Women, describes a pitiful scene at a stopped cattle train after she heard mournful sounds that came from it. She noticed two barefoot girls in old hats and shabby gowns using their aprons to collect berries and water to give to the suffering sheep and cows. Miss Alcott writes, "I wish I could have told those tender-hearted children how beautiful their compassion made that hot, noisy place, and what a sweet picture I took away with me of those two little sisters of charity." A second story. Leo Tolstoy. He was a vegetarian by the 80s, but he was going back and forth. He was a muddler, but he became vegetarian sort of late 1880s in a more consistent way. And he and Chertkov and others formed a publishing firm called Intermediary, and they were the leading publishers of animal rights books and vegetarian books, including a lot of British books like Henry Salt's books. And he was writing an introduction to Howard Williams' book, The Ethics of Diet. And just being a good realist writer, he would always do research like on site. So he went to a slaughterhouse in Tula, near where he lived. And then he wrote this, and I think a lot of you may feel this subconsciously. A lot of you that haven't gone to a slaughterhouse yet, I think we feel this. And even people who've gone many times, I feel this all the time. Okay, long before, when reading that excellent book, The Ethics of Diet, I had wished to visit a slaughterhouse in order to see with my own eyes the reality of the questions raised when vegetarianism is discussed. But at first I felt ashamed to do so, as one is always ashamed of going to look at suffering which one knows is about to take place, but which one cannot avert. And so I kept putting off my visit. And I'm sure we all have stories about the horrors of witnessing suffering and not doing anything about it, and the nightmares it gives us. But it's better to be there than not to be there, and of course it's better to fully help them, but it's better to be there. So some other quick history. In the 1890s, the Humanitarian League in the UK would publish behind-the-scenes reports in their newsletters about slaughterhouses. There was a live market in Smithfield in London, which horrified the public and was alluded to as a shameful place by Charles Dickens in Great Expectations. Again, Britain, in 1995, there emerged a protest movement against live exports after Dover temporarily stopped exporting animals. That's, of course, the site where Jill Phipps was crushed to death in February 1995 by a lorry transporting by air live, quote-unquote, veal calves heading for continental Europe. There are other groups like Animals Angels in Germany, set up by Reverend Christa Blank. I just want to quote her briefly because I think she's done incredible work, and she has a book out. So she says, anyone who becomes involved in the fate of quote-unquote slaughter animals will inevitably witness brutality and death on an unimaginable scale. Their suffering takes place behind closed doors, away from the public gaze. Anyone who wants to know what is done to farm animals has to seek out the facts at auctions and animal markets. Anyone who wants to alleviate the misery of their last days must accompany the animals as they are transported to slaughterhouses, and so on. In the UK, how many people have heard of Shield Meats and the campaign by Essex Animal Defenders? Has anyone heard about that? They were probably the first in the UK to do protests at slaughterhouses. So in 2011, after Animal Aid exposed workers snubbing cigarettes butts on the pigs' faces and kicking them in the faces, there was a group that formed called the protests were organized by Essex Animal Defenders. And then I just was speaking to Sophie, who I'm staying with. She bore comments. Sue Spar, who's a member of our group, told me that 10 years ago she saw a transport truck carrying cows. This is before our group formed. Down a highway, she started to cry and decided to follow the truck. And so she ended up in Toronto at the St. Helens Meatpackers. And she went up to the truck and talked to the cows through the porthole. Slaughterhouse staff came out saying, stop interfering, you're on private property. Of course, none of this is true. And they said they'd call the police, and she said, well, she's going anyway. But I just wanted to share that with you because I just want to show how this is a time immemorial strategy, bearing witness, and people have done it. I just want to take a few examples from other movements. Ramakrishna, and taking an example from social justice and the issue of famine. There was a famine in India in the 1800s, and a rich man who was a philanthropist said that, what's the point of feeding so many people that are suffering from famine? If you can't, one could not help, and you must walk away. So Ramakrishna thereupon sat down among the poor creatures and wept, declaring that he would not move from thence, but would share their fate. Can you imagine if we as animal lovers do that too? Like, okay, we're gonna just sit there and share their fate. People have done it for human justice issues. Martin Luther King said that by not speaking out of the Vietnam War previously, he condoned the carpet bombing, and that his name was written on the bombs that were wreaking havoc. I want to talk a bit about organizing. That's my mother in the wheelchair there. Love for pigs. She was already veg and then soon vegan, after laughing at me for 10 years for being vegetarian and vegan, and then she changed. So community organizing involves mobilizing groups at a community or neighborhood level around local issues. And we use a Tolstoyan Gandhian love-based approach. And we draw on a lot of community organizing theory and practices. For example, Saul Alinsky and Cesar Chavez and so forth. So in this approach, everyone is an organizer. And and Larry's here, an old friend of mine who's from Victoria and has helped me think about organizing. And he said once, the organizing imperative is to move people into some form of activism in which it becomes a regular and important part in their daily lives. So community organizing is for everyone. It's about everyone is a leader, and a good leader brings out leadership in others. So that's our job. We have to nurture leadership in others. There's not a hierarchy. We work together as a team, and that's how we build a grassroots movement. So Gandhi said, I really love this quote by Gandhi. He said, this is taken from, I read his first biography. It was written by Reverend Doak in South Africa. And Leo Tolstoy actually read this biography after Gandhi sent it to him. So they corresponded around 1909 and 1910. And Gandhi told Reverend Doak that real change with right prevailing over injustice would arrive not in some dim and distant future, but within a measurable time, the measure being the measure of the effort we put forth. So in other words, it depends on how much resources and time we put into organizing. If we put more resources, more time, the world will change faster. It's that simple. If we can convert other people to become vegan and, more importantly, activists, the world will change faster. Let's build this movement together. So one of the most profound books ever is Tolstoy's The Kingdom of God is Within You, and this whole book is about love and nonviolence. And it actually inspired Gandhi when he read it in 1893 in South Africa. This is really tough for a lot of us. I know my own personal nature is to be a hothead. When I was a kid, I was always really upset and I cried a lot. And it's not my nature to be calm and composed. That's why I have to read Tolstoy and others every day, just to be calm. So in this approach, you return love for hate. The best and easiest way to thwart evil in this world is to respond to it with kind words, return an evil action with good. And he says it's really important to be non-judgmental, and he quotes the Gospels, Jesus saying, I came not to judge, but to save. That's why I love our name, Toronto Pig Save. My friend came up with it, when I was thinking of names, I was saying, stop the slaughter, or listen, she goes, no, you gotta do something positive. And she just said, Toronto Pig Save. I go, yes, that's it. And save is such a beautiful word because we have to save animals, save the environment, save ourselves. Save is everybody wants to be saved, not to be judged, right? And so Tolstoy says this about judge your neighbor. If you think that it is necessary to judge your neighbor, then say this looking directly into his or her eyes. And say this in such a way that you do not create animosity. He talks about how we need to point out to the oppressor what is wrong. Sometimes oppressors live in an environment or context that is where violence is normalized. And everyone around them is violent, so they don't even know that they're doing something wrong. So we actually have to help them connect the dots. But Tolstoy says deep down inside, in their conscience, they know what's right and wrong. So sometimes you just have to awaken it, but you also have to connect the dots for them. So I just wanted to quote a profound statement that Tolstoy makes in The Kingdom of God is Within You, which I recommend that all of you read. He says, but however much they try to deceive themselves and others, they all know what they are doing is opposed to all the beliefs which they profess. And in the depths of their souls, when they are left alone with their conscience, they are ashamed and miserable at the recollection of it, especially if the baseness of their action has been pointed out to them. So it's our job to point out to them, but in a love-based way. Okay, so basically he says, communicate the truth, not with arrogance, but with love, kindness, simplicity, and humbleness. And I want to say a few things about love-based communication, drawing again from the book that's called The Calendar of Wisdom. Okay, so for truth to be heard, it must be spoken with kindness. Truth is kind only when it is spoken through your heart with sincerity. You should know that when a message you convey to another person is not understood by him or her, at least one of the following things is true. What you said is not true, or you have conveyed it without kindness. Henry David Thoreau was also quoted in that book, A Calendar of Wisdom by Tolstoy. He says, "The only way to tell the truth is to speak with kindness. Only the words of a loving man, woman, etc. can be heard." Tolstoy, "Truth cannot make a person unkind or too self-assured. The manifestations of truth-telling are humility and simplicity," and so forth. Cesar Chavez said, what is community organizing? Well, it means talking to one person and then another person and another person. So just think about that. That's all it is, and you can build a huge movement doing that. And a good organizer has to work hard and long. There are no shortcuts. I wanted to say a little bit about the social media that we use and how important it is to the work we do. We ask all vigil attendees to please film and take pictures when bearing witness. We say use your phones to film as much as you can. Post the photos on Facebook. That's a great start for getting your family, friends, and networks knowing about the activism you're doing. People don't care if I took a picture. They care if you attended the vigil and you take the picture. Your friends care about that. Your family goes, "Wow, what did you do? What was that about?" Okay. So we post. So our group has changed after 5 years. So now we're getting a lot of support after my court case. We're getting a lot more funding like we never did before. Like Lush contacted me saying, "Oh, you want to be part of the charity pot?" That was just like 3 days ago. It's like we're getting a lot of, our group finally has changed after 5 years. And so initially we would sporadically quote, whenever we can, we'd post something on Instagram or Twitter, maybe once a week, twice a week. But now we actually hire somebody who posts every single day, 7 days a week on 3 Instagram accounts, Toronto Pig Safe, Toronto Cow Safe, Toronto Chicken Safe, please follow us, on Toronto Pig Safe Twitter and Climate Vegan Twitter, and also on the Safe Movement Instagram. And then we have a bunch of admins on our Facebook that post a lot. And so the most successful posts that we've had, the videos that have gone viral, are the ones with us giving water to pigs. Again, people are interested in the human story. To me, everything's dramatic. Just the video that I showed you earlier, just with the pig focused on the pig. To me, it's all the same to me. But the public or social media, people on social media, that's what they gravitate towards. And so now we have a new tagline on Instagram. We say, "Have you joined us at one of our weekly vigils? If not, please do. Be a voice for the voiceless." Obviously, animals have a voice, so maybe we should change that. We're just adding, a voice. They have a voice, and we need to listen to them. Too far from Toronto to attend a vigil? Message us to find out how to start a safe group in your community. If you support our work, please donate, etc. We've received so many messages now about people wanting to start groups. So there's somebody in Ireland just a couple days ago, or someone in Utah last week. We get messages all the time, so that's a new focus. And so social media has helped build our movement. And I want to show you one video that we did that went viral. It was posted on the best video you'll ever see, and it has over 15 million views. And a lot of people have messaged us saying, "Oh, I'm going veg because I saw that video." And so you may have seen it before, but it's with Carolyn Wong. Carolyn Wong has been to many of our vigils, pig vigils, but she only interacted with the pigs in fleeting moments. But when we started doing all-day vigils last summer, we started to stop the trucks, sometimes for 10 minutes. And then the police are now helping us stop the trucks in Burlington. So that's what I mean. Our group has changed within the last year. We're doing things differently and better. So I want to show you this video. It's a minute long.
Good morning. I love you, baby. I love you so much. We love you. We love you. I love you so much.
This is so wrong. So very wrong.
That was the first time Carolyn actually connected with the pigs because there was time. So that the other times it was so fleeting, she never really connected, and that's why she broke out and cried. And so glad we captured that to share with the world. Okay, so I want to say a few words about the SAVE movement and then about the court case and what you can do. Okay, so the SAVE movement. So the point one of the themes of today is like, you either get it or you don't. You sort of think that about vegans, right? Like either, once you get it, you go, wow, before I just didn't get it. The same thing is for activism. You either do it or you don't. And so the key is to have regular vigils, and that's how we've built the SAVE movement. Our group does 3 vigils a week. We encourage new groups to do like weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or every 6 weeks, but the key is regular, so that it's not like once a year, or like 2 times a year. As I said, our group is at a new stage now. We have some funding, so we actually hired an organizer in the UK, Andrew Gardner, and he's helping set up the new groups. Michelle Oxton and with Smithfield Pig Save in the US and Jen Regan in Australia, and we're going to look for new other organizers in Ireland, anywhere where we feel there's potential to do a lot of vigils. So in Canada, we have a lot of amazing groups doing vigils, and some groups don't do vigils, or they started doing vigils. Like Windsor Pig Save was started by a 16-year-old woman, and she did vigils for like maybe a year or 2, but now she's going to university and they stop. So that happens, as you know, with any student group or group. You start something, but then it changes, and especially for small towns. In Toronto or Vancouver, it's easy because we have so many activists, right? Okay. In the UK, so the first group that formed was Manchester Pig Save, and now there's 4 saves, and there's more on their way. And the first all-day vigil is planned for June by Manchester Pig Save. They do bi-weekly vigils. Liverpool Pig Save has its first vigil in June, and so does, and West Yorkshire Animal Save is planning a vigil. Essex Pig Save has its first vigil in June at Shield Meats, the one I mentioned earlier, which slaughters 6,000 pigs a week in a rural area but close to a seaside town. Manchester Pig Save already rescued a pig. How cool is that? And they called him Tolstoink. So Tolstoink was a feral pig in a town about an hour away, and some of the locals were getting upset because he was going through the garbage, and some have even proposed to shoot him, so they rescued him, and now he's at one of the organizers' new sanctuary called Manchester Pig Save Farmed Animal Sanctuary. Okay, so regular vigils in the US. So these are some of the groups. So as I said, Michelle Oxton is at Smithfield Pig Save in Virginia, and she already organized an all-day vigil, and she does regular monthly vigils and other events. There's Greeley Cow Save in Colorado. They do bi-weekly vigils at JBS. JBS is a Brazilian-based company, and it's the largest slaughterhouse in the world, company in the world. And Julia Weigard, who organized, teaches at a state college. But JBS provides funding to that college, and they tried to get her fired, and they also try to influence what she can and cannot say. And she teaches public speaking, and the only thing she had to say to them was moo. So there's a group called North Carolina Farmed Animal Save. And for the first couple of years, they didn't do any vigils. They were just like a social media group. Now they started doing vigils as of October. They do monthly vigils, and it's the biggest pig slaughterhouse in the world, 32,000 pigs a day. And it's located in an economically depressed rural area far from cities, but it holds up the entire county. And they use a very love-based approach. There are, there's possibility that migrant workers work there, and it's very difficult. The company really exploits workers. Accidents go unreported. 5 years ago, it was unionized finally there by the IUFC. The workers are paid some of them are paid $15 an hour. It's very difficult for them. They say, I don't like to work here, but what else is there? It's a very economically depressed area. And North Carolina is the second biggest state for pigs. In Australia, I just wanted to mention, like most of the groups do rallies. Only Perth Farm Animal Safe has done vigils, but there's a new group that's going to form. It's called Rivoli, and it's owned by a company called Rivoli in Kuroa in New South Wales. And it's the biggest pig killing company in Australia, and they own the biggest piggery in the southern hemisphere. And that facility has 45,000 sows. Can you imagine that? And so on one side of the street, and then there's a public road, and then the other side of the street, there's a slaughterhouse. So that would be such a great place to do vigils right there. But it's 6 hours from Sydney and 2 hours from Melbourne. So they're gonna have to bus in people. And one of the organizers is Josh Agland. And yeah, he wrote his testimonial. He was a former slaughterhouse worker for 3 years. It's the most moving thing I've ever seen in my life. And you're gonna do an article for the Huffington Post. So Anna Pippis is gonna, because I've never seen anything like it. And it needs to be shared with the world because people don't know how bad it is. You know, we bear witness, and undercover investigators bear witness, right? For like half a year or like a month or a few weeks. He's borne witness for 3 years, and what he's seen, and he says he feels ashamed. And you know, we all feel ashamed for what we've done, and to feel ashamed is like such a positive thing. You know, it's acknowledging and it's moving forward. And Tolstoy said the greatest heroes are those that move the furthest, fastest. So I really honor people who are, you know, in the factory farm system, in the slaughterhouse system, who are now here working for veganism and activism. Okay, I wanted to also say one word about Australia and bearing witness. How many people have heard of Animal Liberation Victoria's shutdown of the slaughterhouse in Melbourne? How many people have heard about that? A handful? They've done the most amazing thing. They locked down on a gas chamber where pigs enter. So pig killing facilities use carbon dioxide butina. It's a company in Denmark who makes gas chambers for pigs. So they lock down inside the chamber, you know, but the carbon dioxide is in the basement because it's heavier than air. So when the pigs are put into this mesh elevator, they go downstairs and many floors down because CO2 is heavier than air, and they suffocate, and it's very painful. And that just stuns them. That doesn't kill them because they want the blood to still pump out they want the heart to pump out the blood after they're stuck in the net and hung upside down. So they're still, and some of them wake up like a minute and a half after this happens, and some of them are trying to swim out as they go into the scalding tank. And even the industry admits like 1% to 2% are conscious while in the scalding tank. So anyways, they bore witness in much fuller sense than we have. They went into the slaughterhouse at night, then entered it, locked down into the CO2. There was 4 of them locked down, and they shut the kill floor for a few hours. And watch Bite Size Vegan's video and interview of them. It just sends chills, you know, through my body when I see people that are that dedicated. You know, it's always been like a dream I had at the back of my mind. Like, I want to go into the kill floor. You love animals so much, you want to follow them. Even though I'm sure most of us are highly sensitive, and I'm squeamish. I can't even look at a needle. But when you love someone, you want to be there with them and get the word out, tell their story, and stop it. So anyways, I just wanted to say, you know, thank you to the activists in Australia. Okay, so finally, well, 2 more things. So I want to talk briefly about my case. I'm just wondering what the time is like now. Okay, so I'll just briefly say a bit about the case. The main thing I want to get across with this case is the golden rule. So I was charged with criminal mischief, interference with the lawful use, enjoyment, and operation of the property being the pigs. That's the summons that I received. There's a video of this case. I won't play it now, but probably a lot of you have seen it, where there's a confrontation with a trucker, and he says, don't give them any water. And I said, if the pigs are thirsty, they're going to get water. And then I quote Matthew chapter 25 from the gospel, saying, when I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. And then he said, they're not human, you dumb frickin' broad. And then I just ignored that, and I kept on giving water. And then he said he would slap the bottle out of my hands and call the police, and I said, call Jesus. And anyways, no police came, but then like 6 weeks later, police came to my apartment, and one officer, and he said, I don't know anything about this, I'm just delivering the summons. I said, come into my apartment, watch this, I remember that incident, and we filmed it. And he goes, oh, this is gonna make it in the news. Whatever. Okay, so the golden rule, according to Tolstoy, again from that book, A Calendar of Wisdom, is we should take pity on animals in the same way as we do on each other. And we all know this if we do not deaden the voice of our conscience. So there he's just applying the golden rule to animals. And somebody on the Care 2 petition for this case said, my God, stop drinking water yourself and see what is really a crime. So I have a 5-day trial coming up in the end of August. We received a ton of support on social media, so I was actually a bit anxious. Like David said before, what's happening to us is nothing compared to what's happening to the animals, but nonetheless, I was anxious when I got this charge. But then after our first pre-trial, there was like a vigil in support of the case. There were so many friends that came out, I didn't expect that, like 20, 30 people. And all my anxiety left after that moment. Literally, I've never felt any anxiety anymore. And like David, I was just thrilled to see all the media attention that we've received for this case, and our story getting out. And it's all sympathetic media, and we're able to. Those are my 2 vegan lawyers working pro bono. Gary Grill and James Silver. They said, oh, don't tell people we're working pro bono. They're working pro bono. So there was I would have media scrums at the pre-trials, and and just like I did like a dozen talk radio shows. I was on a lot of like news networks, and so this all happened just by us putting out press releases, our group, and then a donor contacted us and said, you need to be in the international media. They hired a PR firm, Evelotus, so they helped it go international. So the UK media covered it, all the big papers covered it in the UK, The Guardian, The Mirror, whatever, The Independent, I was on BBC Radio. Then it went around the world once England covered it, you know, Russia Today, which is like their CNN, covered it, and on and on and on. Like people in Norway said, oh, I saw it on TV, or like really amazing. There was a solidarity protest by Animal Liberation Argentina in front of the Canadian embassy, like, how do you know, wow. Same thing in Portugal. And, Tolstoy, when he was helping, he and his family were helping famine victims in 1892. The authorities tried to say, there is no famine, and it's illegal to set up soup kitchens. And Tolstoy said, people cannot be prohibited from eating. Well, we say pigs cannot be prohibited from drinking. There's this issue of property versus personhood. Stephen Weiss, how many people have heard of the Non-Human Rights Project? Phenomenal. And there's a movie that just came out on it called Empty the Cage. Is it Empty the Cages? Unlocking the Cages. Unbelievable, like by these top filmmakers who did a movie on Dylan, but they did this film on him, and it was open at Sundance to give you an idea how good this film is. It's like so inspirational. So he wrote many books, and very inspiring, and I encourage you to look him up on arguing for the personhood of animals. So I'm just going to skip forward to Tolstoy and the idea of you either get it or you don't. And let me just, so in his diaries in 1909, after he was already a vegetarian for 20 years or so, he said, I thought about how I used to shoot birds and animals, dispatch birds with a quill in their heads and hares with a knife in their hearts without the slightest compassion, and do things which I can't think about now without horror. So I just wanted to say this, and then he wrote about sports hunting as being an evil pastime, just to show how we can all change. And you either get it or you don't. So our job is to awaken people in a kind way. And then I wanted to show how his dreams, and even in his dreams he could not imagine shooting or being a hunter anymore once he was like vegetarian. So he goes, I arrived at my brother's house and met him on his steps with his rifle and dog. He invited me to go hunting with him. I said I didn't have a gun. He said that instead of a gun, I could take, for some reason, a clarinet. I wasn't surprised and went hunting with him through the familiar places to the sea. I wasn't surprised at that either. Boats were sailing on the sea, but they were really swans. My brother said, shoot. I did as he wished, but the clarinet in my mouth, put it in my mouth, but couldn't blow at all. Anyways, then he said, well, I will, and he fired, and then the shot was so loud that I woke up in bed and saw that what had been the shot was really the noise of the screen opposite the window, which had been blown down by the wind and had fallen over. So a bit of a surreal experience. But even in his subconscious, he couldn't imagine hurting an animal or shooting. So that's like how we are, right? You either get it or you don't. Just my conclusion is, what can you do? So the beginning part, I talked about community organizing part 1, where we bear witness. Now we're to have a part 2 where we're giving out saved leaflets. So Carolyn has them, if you could just put them up there. So if anybody's willing, if you come here, Carolyn, just give it to. So we're giving out leaflets in a door-to-door campaign with vegan coupons in the middle. So we printed 20,000, but we're going to print 50,000. So anyone who's possibly interested in doing this in Vancouver, we can help with funding, where you would get local vegan coupons and either give them out at events or go door to door. It's helping people to go vegan. You know, the vigils are the why, this is the how. The other thing we're doing is we have funds. There was a donor that gave us $25,000 to do Earthlings pay-per-views at campuses. So if anyone anywhere in BC, or if you're from somewhere else, if you're interested in helping us out, basically, we give you $1,000 to, like, for 100 people to, at campuses, to watch Earthlings or Cowspiracy or Forks of Knives or whatever film you think is a good conversion film. We also have a climate vegan campaign, because I actually think that's one of the biggest issues, and Anna Pippis helps us with admitting that we have a climate vegan Facebook page. Anyways, I just think it's such a huge issue, and in some ways the biggest issue. Because the animals and all of us won't be around because of our selfishness and ignorance. Just some pictures of the door-to-door. These beautiful people doing door-to-door. These beautiful people doing Earthling screenings. So we had one at York University. Over 100 people came. And so you see in the top photo, so everybody who watched it till the end gets a PCRM vegan starter kit with $10 in it. And then there's a Q&A, and there was free vegan food, like pizza and all that. So we'll provide not only $1,000, but $200 for gift prizes and $200 for food. But you can also apply to the veg fund for food, and that's what York U did. Look at that beautiful poster. It just doesn't say much about Earthlings. It just says, free cash, free food. You know? This is our climate vegan campaign. We put posters in the public transit. Are we eating the planet to death? It's a very powerful poster, and it's in the safety plan. That's it. Like, please join us. We all have the duty to bear witness. I really mean it, like all of us and all your friends and family. And it's our job to get other people out there, meat eaters, vegan, closet vegans. Everyone's an organizer. Please let me know if you're interested in door-to-door campaign or the Earthling screenings or helping out with the climate vegan. Thanks.